Yeah, good morning. Let me just open today's sequence. Okay, yeah. So let me ask you guys, have you tried, like yesterday we wrote the complete end-to-end application, which has a which has what? One microservice or one REST API calling others. So I'll just tell you today's plan and then we'll proceed. So I'll not revise the whole flow because it takes more than half an hour and then today's topics will get affected. So I'll do a little bit quicker revision. If you have any questions at that time, please ask. Then I want to show you, HBM to DDL property. So which is the value we have used so far in our property file for Hibernate mapping to DDL? The update value, yes. But there are other values also. So there can be an exam question or two, which are the other values, which are the legal ones and all. I'll show you that. Then the next one, I want to show you, there is a Hibernate session API. Everyone knows session.get, we have used it. But I have been wanting to tell you about, there is a load method. So there is get versus load. Session API. But now we have shifted to, okay, the next thing I shifted you to JPA. So equivalently we have in JPA, find, and the corresponding to load, there is a method called as get reference. And in Spring Data JPA, see the concept is the same. Okay, in Spring Data JPA, we have the method find by ID versus get by ID. Okay, so I will discuss the difference in that. Then I want to show you a simple demo, quick demo of composite primary key. I'll give you the code and we'll just test it together. And then the main topic we will start with is first main topic, Spring AOP, aspect-oriented programming. So you may not use it directly, you may or may not, in your projects, but it is definitely an important exam objective. So we'll spend good amount of time on it. After entering J2E Advanced Java, I have not shown you. I've talked about Web Application Archive, but I have not really shown you the creation of a WAR file, creation of a jar file. So I will show you all that. And then remaining time, we are going to spend in Spring Security. I don't think this will be possible because Spring Security itself will take a lot of our time. So this is the plan. So please open your Eclipse and we'll get started. I'll do the quick revision of the flow and we'll get started. So in the meantime, or whenever we are revising, if you have any specific question or even before that, do ask. So tell me, okay, before I revise, please keep this diagram in front of you. REST template demo, so that you will understand what is it we have built and what is it I'm explaining. So everyone knows we have written, or rather I had supplied with you a React frontend, a ready-made, but that was only for CRUD. Okay, so that React frontend, we have replaced it by Postman. Later, as I said, add a one component, bank customer authentication in React, and you can test the whole thing what I did in with React frontend also. If I get time in a day or two, I will update my React project and send it to you. But like I said, I have to get time for this. Next one. So this React client or front end or whatever, Postman, it is going to send the authentication object. Authentication object means it's not an authentication object, it's a login request, basically, a DTO. So tell me, have you understood the concept of DTO? DTO stands for Data Transfer Object. And what is it used for? As the name suggests, DTO can be used to pass the data between the layers, such as between controller, service, DAO, and all that. Plus, it can be used to send the data between two applications. Understood something about DTO or still not clear? Respond, guys. So I have got this. Anyway, we are going to revise that flow. So coming back to the point. So here, your front-end client will give the JSON representation of a login request. Which login request? Not for employee, for the bank login, net banking login. And here, you know the layers. So these are all the layers. If you talk about employee controller, employee service, employee now, this we have already mastered. But because I'm saying mastered because we have been really doing it for lot many days now. So there we had added another controller, which I had renamed. Oh, this is an old diagram. Anyway, so that net banking client controller, net banking client controller was injected with net banking service, but net banking related tables such as bank account, bank customer, etc. Did it reside on this employee management system or was it with the net banking? Easy question, obvious question. Where were the tables? Of course, they were in the ultimate backend. So what did this service consist of? This service layer, we were injecting REST template using the REST template builder. And this service layer was simply making a call using what? ORG Spring Framework from HTTP module. There is a class called as REST template, which is equivalent to our Axios instance. So like how in React applications, we use Axios to make the calls to the backend. Here, we have a REST template, you have a async REST template, you have a web template, so many examples, you have REST template. So that we had, and that was making the call. So there are calls exactly for HTTP methods. So there is a get, there's a put, there's a post, there's a delete, correct? So we had used post for entity, made the call. Here, the backend was anyway up and running. So this is where the authentication using net banking DAO layer, net banking entities and all happened. And as a result, another DTO. So here we had created login response DTO, which was getting marshaled here. Marshaled means what? Converted from Java to JSON. It was sent over wire. Currently, everything is locally hosted, but it is just a matter of you putting it on different machines, remote machines. So on the wire, JSON representation of state of that DTO was passing. And here again, what is it called? Deserialization is equal to unmarshalling took place. So that is that post or post for entity method where you have to supply the response type dot class. And then this or the exception. So in that case, in case of exception, we had already written the global exception handler, etc. So exceptions were getting handled. And in case of success, we were sending, means this net banking client controller was sending the JSON representation of DTO to the front end. So that was the flow. So take a look at it and we'll go on to see the first topic of today. So you can open net banking REST client. I'm just revising the part which is relevant. So here, COM app controller, everything starts with net banking client controller. So you start responding. I hope you have revised or at least you have gone through it with me. So can you tell me what will be the incoming URL pattern required to respond to call this authenticate bank customer method? What is the incoming URL pattern? Everyone should know this by now. The incoming is /bank/accounts. Easy question. And why I had used the post method? Not for creating the resource. You're not creating any resource, but only for the purpose of security. So we are sending our credentials. So it is for the get versus post. Post is more secure that way. So here, are we doing any validation? Actually, I forgot. You can add a validation also. If you want to add a validation, which is the additional annotation you have to place for the validation of request body @valid annotation. So here you can add @valid annotation, for example. And where will you add the validation rules? In which class will you add the validation rules? Which is the class where will you do the validation rules? The no. I said validation rules, guys. Yeah, but which class? Give me the name. Here, which class? Where will you annotate? Where will you add that not blank, not null, etc. The rules. Or the exact answer? Yes. So it's not a, it's a DTO. You say DTO is a POJO, plain old Java object. Absolutely. But I wanted a precise answer. So here, if you see this, I don't remember. Yeah, we had not added. It's just a matter of adding, not. If it is a string, which one I can use? Not empty or not null? Not empty or not null. If it is a string type, not empty. If it is a non-string, you please add not null. So not empty here. And you can have a message so that if the front end, the React front end or Postman front end makes error, you can always see this. I have done these checks in the backend, so I had not done this. This is just a matter of revision. So what is it? Customer ID cannot be blank. Or you have to supply it. And similarly, you can give a suitable message. Password cannot be blank. I said I did not add it yesterday because I think we have already added in the backend. So this was just a recap. So coming back to the point now. So what will this login request come? So, okay, sorry. What are the two things your Spring container will do? It will do the unmarshalling, that is JSON to Java object creation using that HTTP message converter. HTTP message converter is an interface implemented by Jackson as the Java 2, as the converter jar, as a conversion vendor. And using this, it will also call the supplied validation rule. Anytime your Lombok library is not working, please remember, today I'm going to supply a lot of ready-made code. So everywhere I have used Lombok annotations. So remove that and replace it by your getter setters, no arc constructor, all arc constructor, etc. I'll give you the suggestions accordingly. So now this is only for debugging. Who is calling whose method? Controller calling the service method. So open the service layer. So here is our service layer. And here is your iNet banking client service. This is your implementation. So now be more focused, because this is the thing which I want to really revise. So what we are looking at, or okay, I'll highlight. What is this expression? Is it a JSPEL or is it a Spring expression language? Spell or JSPEL? Answer is right in front of you. Spring supplied expression language. It has the same syntax as your JSPL. So what happens here is, okay, you can take the cursor here. It's a annotation to extract the value of this Spring expression, whatever the dynamic expression, and that value will be injected to the field. You have this at constructor level. You can use it at different level. So the moment you have added this, where should be this property? This is nothing but a key. So which is the place, which is that common property file we have, where we have declared this property. Name of the property file, it's application.properties. What is the location of it? SRC main resources. So instead of hard coding our REST API URL, we define as constants. You remember in our React, so we created as a constant and we created elsewhere and just use those constants. Similar approach. So I've got a authentication URL, so that tomorrow, if my backend server, if my net banking server changes the domain, changes the port number or whatever, all I have to make is change in the property file. Understood the concept so far? I mean, recalling the statements which we have made yesterday. Okay. So here, this in goes the key. This is nothing but a property. Property is what? A map. Map of key and a value pair, where the key is nothing but the property name, string, and the value is another string. It's string comma string, key and a value pair. So where we are. So here dependency injection is happening again, where the container refers to the property name from that application property file. Can you create your own property file? Answer is yes. But then additional steps. So we did not invest time in that. And now the main thing. What is the dependency of net banking client service implementation class? One dependency is authentication URL and the other dependency is REST template. Think of REST template as equivalent to Axios instance. So tell me, if you are using the Spring Boot application, can you auto wire? Can I add auto wire here? And will Spring Boot container directly give me the REST template dependency? Answer is no. Guys, to tell you honestly, I have not recently tested. So you can do that. How you can test it? Even if I get time, I'll test it for you. So just comment this and simply add auto wire. Last time I checked, last time means maybe we are in Spring Boot 2.6.3. I think I checked it in something like 2.3. I don't remember, frankly. Anyway, so that time it was giving me a null. So, and then I read the documentation and there they had already specified from something like 2.x onwards, you have to inject the template builder and from that you have to get the dependency. So are we auto wiring it? Are we getting the REST template directly from the container from Spring Boot? No. But are you getting auto wired, automatically wired its builder in your constructor? 100% yes. So when you add at auto wired annotation over the constructor, over the parameterized constructor, what is it? Setter based EI, constructor based EI, or a factory based EI? Of course, it is a implicit form of constructor based dependency injection. So if you must be remembering, we have done this wiring, Spring wiring. So that is it. Only thing is, I don't have to write XML. So we use the at auto wire, which corresponds to the moment it is on the constructor, automatic wiring by constructor. And this bean, this REST template builder bean is created by who? Spring container. And using this REST template builder bean, what is it? We have to build a REST template. Okay, so I have already given whose job is who. I mean, who performs what. So REST template builder, Spring supplied, REST template, built using some build methods. Okay, now the main thing, the controller was calling here service layer, and like how he said, REST template is now ready, equivalent to your Axios instance for making the backend call. So which is the method we used here? We wanted to post this login request because of security. So which is the method we are using? Post for entity. What are the arguments? The URL of the REST provider. This is a REST consumer now, and the net banking is REST provider. So URL, the request body, because it's a post. So request body is nothing but a login request. And now, can this send you the response? Answer is yes. I can get a response from a post method. So here you have to supply the class corresponding to the response you are going to get. So, class of type T. Tomorrow I'm going to take remaining topics in Java, which includes reflection programming. So there you will have a better idea about what is this class, what are the different ways of creating it, what exactly refers to class type of instance, etc. Anyway, so this is your response type of the class. And this class is nothing but the class corresponding to the response you are going to receive. And in addition to that, if you want any URI variables, path variables, basically, you can add them. So now you can see yourself. So REST template post for entity, the same method. It is supposed to create a new resource. We are not creating any new resource, using it only for security purpose. Authentication URL already injected from the application property file. This is your login request. And if you recall, all we are sending is the login response, which hold the customer names and the one-to-many it has. One customer can have multiple accounts, so all the account details. So this is nothing but your DTO again. So see this, data transfer object. So we have two applications, EMS, Employee Management System, and Net Banking. Okay, one is EMS, one is Net Banking. EMS is a REST client, and Net banking is a REST server. Okay, API consumer, API provider. So if I ask you, what is your request? What is this DTO? This is a DTO, data transfer object, sent from EMS to net banking client to supply the authentication credentials, email password, name password, email password, something. And what is, in case of success, what is your backend? What is your net banking going to return? The another DTO, which is login response. Understood it completely? The request and this. I'm telling you guys, never is a strong word, but generally don't expose your entities directly as data transfer object, as a payloader in the JSON form. Generally, typically, you'll see sometimes entities themselves can be sent in the response entity and can be, but in some of the cases, when you don't want to expose your entities, use the DTO pattern. So I gave you the practice of that throughout yesterday. So anyway, so you know all about this. There are no URI available. So fourth, right? Yeah, fourth argument is nothing. And here, if all goes well, it is going to return your response entity. So now pause here. This is a REST call made from front-end EMS to net banking. So now open net banking server, net banking REST server. And here, this is your what? Client. Let me open this. Open the controller, please. So COM app controller. And just in a second. So what is the URL? See, it has to match. So that URL was not here. Yeah, URL was okay, the port number. Now we have two Tomcat containers. One which was running EMS and the other was running net banking, right? Net banking client, net banking server, that way. So /bank/sign in, check whether it is matching. Has to match, otherwise it wouldn't have worked. So this is your, you don't require currently, because, okay, let me ask you, why should I answer? I said, currently, you don't require this annotation. You can comment it and it will still work. Why? Or rather, I'll rephrase it. When will you require it? Cross origin annotation, when will you require? Yes. So when you have the browser-based client, are you understanding this? Then it is the browser who rejects the request from or responses from different origins. Different origins means different ports, different hosts, different domains, etc. So even if you comment it, it should still work. Okay, so going ahead, /bank/sign-in, which is the request. So it has got, the backend has got its own dispatcher servlet to handler mapping, etc. and calls this method. So at this point, we are accepting, here I'm not validating, so good I validated in the front end. I thought I'm doing it a validation in the back end. Anyway, so this is that login request. So here the unmarshalling will take place. You know all of that. And then we are simply calling the service layer. So service layer of the backend. So open the service layer, which is nothing but calling some DAO layer method. So here we have a finder pattern. We don't write the DAO implementation for last 2-3 days. We just use the repository pattern, customer repository, find by customer ID and password. In case of failure, giving the error message handled by the global exception handler. Otherwise, now this is important. So this is where you are creating a response DTO. So tell me, what are, okay, you can check here, control click. So here, instead of using the customer entity and the bank account entity, okay, let me rephrase my statement. Am I exposing, I as a net banking server, am I exposing entities directly in the request response? Answer is no. So this is your advantage of DTO. If it was customer entity and bank account, along with customer name, I would have 10 different details of customer. So don't expose the entities directly in most of the cases. Some cases you can. So here we created a special DTO login response, which has only the required things. So suppose I wanted customer name and the list of his or her accounts. Okay, so So this is the response entity. I'm sorry, the response object we are having. So here, creating a DTO populated with customer name, which is already lifted from the database. And now, what is it we are using? This is an account repositories finder method. So if you go here, find by, anyone wants to tell me what must be account owner? What must be this SCCT owner? Does it have to match with anything or nothing? Of course, it has to match. So what it has to match? Yeah, but customer means what? Yes, it has to be a POJO property in bank account which maps to the customer. So how do you confirm? Open this and you will see here the where is that account owner, which is the POJO property in, and we have many to one. Unidirectional is easier, so many to one relationship, etc. So coming back to the point. Oh no, not here. Here. So this was your find by account owner, but account owner is of which type? Okay, what we wanted to do is we wanted to get the list of bank accounts for a particular customer. So which is the data member in account owner? Customer ID, C lowercase, and here you pass the customer ID. Only change from our general things here is I'm not using an auto-generated customer ID just to show you a sign type of generator. So which is the annotation I have put in the on the top of customer ID? At ID, at generated value, both or neither. And the answer is only at ID. You got this? Okay. So this is your net banking implementation. So if, like I said, this is a service layer method. So either it will throw the exception or it will send the login response. So we come to the layer above, which is bank controller. So what is bank controller doing? Bank controller is, yeah, this is the one. I was looking again at a different endpoint. What we are doing is returning this particular login response encapsulated in response entity. So what is this? Okay, this is the method name. This is your static method, which adds the HTTP status response code as 400 and whatever body content you want to add. Okay, so again the control. So here at this end, what will happen for this response entity? Because it is implicitly added response body, serialization, marshalling will take place. Control comes back from where it started. Net banking, yeah. So now here the unmarshalling. And for unmarshalling, what is required? For deserialization, what is required? The dot class file and the data. So we have given all of that. And that is what we got as a response entity login response. Control comes back to the controller. And here we are just sending this response entity, which holds that login response consisting of customer name and associated accounts all the way back to the client. So this was the complete flow we had done in the yesterday's sessions. Any question? Anything you have not understood, or why this and not other and all that? Any questions so far? So of course, go through that. And in your project, I'll tell you something now more. A project tip. After this, you're going to start your .NET. I mean, I don't know when, but yeah, sometime you will start your .NET training, right? So let me ask you, can Java REST controller, can it invoke the .NET REST API? Possible or not possible? I said, can Java REST API make a call to .NET based REST API or Node based REST API? You can answer yes or no. 100% yes. That is it all about. It is technology independent, machine independent, completely portable. So whenever you learn .NET, there is a very easy way to create a payment gateway in .NET. You can create it in Java also. You can use the Razor, I mean, standard payment providers, a dummy, of course, dummy payment gateway, and you can connect to it. But the point is, if you want to show that, okay, I know front-end React, I know Java as well as .NET, you can create a really a cross-technology solution. I mean, I'm just telling you as a suggestion, and you can use whatever whatever application you have written, you can, for a payment option and all, you can again connect to some other technology and have the payment gateway added. Okay, so that is just a food for thought again. So this was about your yesterday's revision. So you can always develop a cross technology solution and show your understanding, show your comfort level. So now let's come to our today's topics. So here I'll in the today's readme, today's whatever data I've given you, I'll arrange them properly. So there is something called as the name of the file itself is HBM to DDL. So only one value you knew. I'm just talking about other values. So read this quickly. I don't think you'll require any explanation. Anyway, read. What are the possible values like? Okay, so if we in the Hibernate days, I mean standalone Hibernate, we had hibernate.cfg.xml, and this was the property name. If we talk about our recent Spring Boot applications, you know the name of the property is changed to spring.hibernate, but the name is the same. So what I mean is spring.jpa.hibernate DDL auto. It's the same property. You in fact you take a cursor here and it will tell you this is actually a shortcut for hibernate.hbm to DDL.auto. Okay, defaults to create drop when using the embedded database. We are not using embedded database. There is something called as memory based database H2. We don't use it. We have been using MySQL throughout. So this is an exam tip. Okay, so what are the possible values? Which is the value we have been using? Only update. But is this the only option or are there others? There are others. So which one is here? Validate. So it will just validate the schema. Schema is what? Containing database tables. But will it actually make any changes to the database? Answer is no. So in production grade, after your development is all over, you know that now no new tables, nothing is going to happen. After your application is fully tested, tried, deployed, and whatever, you can change that update value to validate. Okay. Next one, the one which we have used all throughout since we entered Hibernate is update. So it will check, your JPA provider will check, example, Hibernate will check if there is a table corresponding to Pojo. If the answer is no, a new table gets created, automatic table creation. Otherwise, we'll continue with the existing one. Which is the other option you have? Other option you have is create. So here, what it will do is, even when the table is populated with some rows, let's say employee, I've got already 10 records. So it will creates the schema means what? It will delete the entire earlier data. Okay, but will it drop the tables and recreate them? Answer is no. Only destroys the data, deletes the data. And the most serious ones means starting everything from scratch. There is another one, create hyphen drop. There's no drop or whatever. So here, when the application is stopped and when you restart, okay, when the application is stopped, your JPS entity manager factory or your corresponding session factory, at that time, it will destroy the schema. I mean, it will drop all the tables. And when you relaunch the application again, the tables will be created all over. So the safe bet, safe option was update. So this is the thing which we have used throughout. Like I said, in the production environment, production phase, you can change this update value to validate. Understood all the possible options? Yes or no? Guys, it is only today, tomorrow. So whatever project tips, interview tips, and whatever exam tips, all will be shared like this. This reminds me of another important readme. So somewhere in here, I'm taking you to the first day of Hibernate. Yeah. So day 9 help, Hibernate help. There are a lot of readmes. So one of them is HBM2 DDL was copied here also. There's something else I wanted to show you regarding, just a second, let me find out regarding here. So here, tell me, okay, make a note. See, I'm saying that I'll give you the list, but don't rely on me. You should have your own list. So that HBM2 DDL, one thing, and there are variety of ID generators, Hibernate or JPA providers. This thing, what do you say? They supply. So if you add only at ID, is it an automatically generated ID or is it an assigned one, a supplied one? Automatic or assigned? Answer is assigned. You got this? So here the only one which I have showed you is, which one I have shown? You use at generated value, and what is the strategy we use? Strategy is equal to generation type dot identity, which is best suited for best fit for this thing MySQL. But does that mean that it is the only one? Absolutely not. So in case you are using Oracle, Oracle has a sequence generator. Oracle supports sequences. So you can generate your sequence in Oracle and give there is an annotation called as @sequence generator, and you can supply that. So guys, this is exam tip, so I'm not going too much into detail. Or you can have the strategy as table. So in this table, see that at table generator, like how here it is at sequence generator, and here you have a name of the table, and you can have the column. I mean, one of the columns can be the ID, and in short, you can start generating. You means not you, Hibernate JPA provider can start taking the IDs either from sequence or either from table. So that is also possible. And there is another one. I've written all of it. So this is the one we have been using, identity, table. Okay, for MySQL, identity and table both are supported. And sometimes, because see, all these depends on my project queries. I mean, you guys, when you enter project phase, you have specific requirements. So one of the questions once upon a time was, can I have my own custom ID generator? I don't want to use the Hibernate supply generators, for example, sequence or whatever, table or identity. So because the student was requiring the department ID, for example, R&D, and then the R&D 001 auto incremented the next field. So answer is yes, and I have given in complete details how to do that. So you have to basically implement interface. This is Hibernate specific identifier generator, and you have to override a method generate, and you can do that. So the point is, this is not I'm explaining for project tip actually. This I'm explaining mainly for exam tip. So what is the name of the file regarding ID generators? Definitely, at least vertically go through that anytime you are preparing for exams. So now coming back to the point. Okay, so this was your refer to read me. Now, I had not thought of this, but this is also worth discussing. Okay, so here there are, different types of method. So one is get versus load comparison. Get method is replaced by find in JPA, and the load method is replaced by get reference. But now we are not in Hibernate, native Hibernate or JPA. So what are the corresponding methods of Spring Data JPA? Find by ID versus get by ID. But what is the difference between all of it? So here is the answer. It is one word answer, lazy versus eager. But I mean, that one word answer may not be sufficient. So let me explain. So here I've given you some this thing, ready-made project day 18. I mean, get versus load. So I can import that, or I will do that. But first understand the difference. So where is that? I met this. Okay. It is again a popular question. So you should know about it. So I am explaining it using Hibernate Session API. Exactly same things you will see in JPA as well as Spring Data JPA. Only the method names change. The concept doesn't change. So focus on one thing. Go back to our Hibernate days where we had from session factory, we used to get the session, and then you have session API. So now focus. So everyone I'm sure remembers the method session.get. What were the two arguments? The Pojo class and the serializable ID. Everyone remembers it? Yes or no? So this is the get method. We have used it so many times. Now get was replaced by find, and today find by ID. In Spring Data JPS, everything is the same. So now look at the LHS part. So here, this is what. When you say get uses eager fetching policy. Means what? Refer to all those diagrams. I've shared so many diagrams for internal working of get and all. So when you say session.get, select query will be fired if the persistent Pojo reference does not exist already in L1 cache. So let me ask you, when you say session.get, will your Hibernate blindly fire the select query or will it check? Answer the question. Of course it will check. You remember we had said session.get couple of times. So suppose I said 10 times and ID is a valid ID. How many times your select query was fired? 1 time or 10 times? Let me see your answer. Of course, 1 time. Yeah. So the point is this you know. So if the record is not found, if the corresponding reference is not found in L1 cache, is your get method going to still act in a lazy manner, or is it going to hit the database with the select query? 100% select query will be fired. So we can say that if ID exists, what did your get method return? Did it return something like a proxy, as in a substitutor to your database data, or did it return you the actually loaded data? Proxy or no proxy? Answer is the session.id never ever returns a proxy. Where have you heard this word proxy earlier? Today again in Spring AOP you're going to hear it. But earlier where you have heard? Can you give me one example where we have talked about this is what will return the proxy? The substitutor instead of the unfetched data, basically, instead of the real data. Any bells ringing anywhere or nothing? Silence. Yeah, but no. That is what you are describing, Prashant, is lazy initialization exception. My question was, can you tell me the trigger which you have seen which will force Hibernate to return the proxy instead of real data? Guys, answer is expected. Exactly. One to many. Or can we rephrase it to any to many, guys? You remember any to many. What is any to many? One to many as well as many to many. So tell me, when you say any to many association, what is the default fetching policy? It is lazy. Means what? When one customer has multiple bank accounts, and if you fire the query on customer, is it going to load in a bidirectional association, of course? So is it going to load the customer details, bank account details, both or neither by default? Customer accounts, both or neither. When you fire select C from customer C, only customer. But if you have created a bidirectional association between customer and accounts, customer has a list of accounts and account has a customer as the account owner. Okay. So now tell me, when you say customer has a list of accounts, this list of accounts, what is it? Is it a fetch data? Is it containing the data fetched from the database, or is it representing the unfetched data? Fetched? Yeah, unfetched. Unfetched data. And what is this unfetched data represented by? Something called as uninitialized proxies. Okay, representation of unfetched data is a proxy, special name uninitialized proxy. And when you try to access such a proxy, such an uninitialized proxy outside the session scope, which is the famous exception which was raised. Everyone should know this, the lazy init exception. You remember that? So that was when you had visited, or we had visited, we had that course and student, and I had shown you all these examples. So now you are going to see the proxy pattern or proxy once again in a minute. So come back. So session.get method, will it ever return the proxy? Answer is never. It will either return you the persistent POJO reference fully loaded with database data, so no question of proxy, or it will return you null if the ID is not found. So here, such a loaded object can be directly accessed in a detached manner, means outside the session scope. Will it ever result into lazy init exception? Answer is never. And if ID doesn't exist, is it going to throw you any exception? Answer is no. The null value is returned. So tell me, frankly, each and every word under get is clear? Because now I'm going to differentiate it with load. Clear completely? Okay. So now come to load. Okay. So what is load? Load is the other method of session, and it has same API, same signature. What goes in is the POJO class and serializable ID, and what it returns is the T type, as in POJO type of reference. But the main difference is when you say load, which is the default fetching policy it will use, lazy or eager? Answer is lazy. Means Hibernate framework, when you say session.load 10 times, doesn't matter, is it going to fire the select query to hit the database automatically? Answer is no. And when you when you say, okay, so in short, there is a unless, of course, there's a solution. I had discussed all these solutions to get rid of lazy init exception in our any to many scenario, which was one to many, many to many. So of course there is a solution for this problem or whatever. So the point is, here it will not fetch the data from the database. So what will this load method, forget this line, I'll come to this line in a minute. So in the normal case, in the default case, what will Hibernate return? It returns uninitialized proxy. And think of uninitialized proxy as a wrapper, only the wrapper shell, you know the English word shell, without any substance inside, empty shell. So uninitialized proxy is like a wrapper without any data loaded from the database. And when such an uninitialized proxy is accessed outside the session scope, whenever you are trying to access unfetched data outside the session scope, which is the exception which is guaranteed from Hibernate, lazy init exception. So Hibernate does not care whether ID exists or ID doesn't exist. If you are trying to access unfetched data from the database, it doesn't know whether ID exists or not. I hope you are understanding me. So 100% lazy init exception is guaranteed. So I have another flowchart also, but this first let me explain this. So let me ask you, if you use, we are going to work it out in a minute. If we use session.load and we don't use something called as a trick, so non-ID getter. So if in a default manner, it behaves in a lazy manner. Lazy means what? Will it fire the select query or will it not? Simple question, simple answer. It absolutely doesn't fire the select query. So what is it? What is the load method by default returning? The loaded data, lifted data from the database, or something called as uninitialized proxy? Answer is uninitialized proxy. Uninitialized proxy means what? The proxy reference, it is throughout going to return you a proxy, but currently uninitialized because it has not loaded the data. And when you access such a proxy outside the session scope, which is the exception you will get is lazy init exception. Lazy org.hibernate.lazy initialization exception. Okay, so this is one default behavior. So if you want to avoid this lazy init exception, is there a solution? So of course there is a solution, but first let me check your understanding. So here is a question for you. In any to many scenario, which is one book has multiple authors, one author has multiple books, many to many. One course has multiple students, but the multiple student, I mean, a student can only opt for one course, one to many. So the question is, I have shown you examples. I've spent a lot of time on that. We have spent. Okay. So if your one to many by default is, it works in a lazy manner. So can you tell me what we saw the lazy init exception in last week or sometime. So what is the solution for avoiding the problem? What was the solution in any to many association? This is extremely important. I'm just checking. Okay, so the one poorest solution is change the fetch type to eager. But is it a good solution or is it a bad solution? Changing the fetching type to eager, horrible, worst solution. Please don't do it in projects unless and until the size of many is small. Okay, so because every time you lift the one side or one side of the association, the data is lifted. What is the other slightly better solution? Access. Joint fetch was the best one. I'm saying the intermediate. You can access the size of the collection within the session scope. Okay, so that way. Or the best solution is explicitly tell whenever you need to lift the many side of the association, actually use the keyword join fetch. So I'll talk an example. You tell me the example. I'll give you the scenario. I've got author, I've got book. This is a untested. I mean, this is a new scenario, so I want to check your clarity as always. So can one author have multiple books? Yes. Can one book have multiple authors? I mean, it's many to many. So now user has given me, let's say, book title. This is a fresh question for you. So take it as an input. So user has given you the book title. Okay, book title is like, I mean, of course it is unique. It's not a primary key. It's a unique constraint. And I want to find out the book details as well as the author details associated with the book. So give me the join fetch. Give me the solution. Actually, I already gave this. I'll repeat the question again. I want to fetch the book details as well as author details in a single inner join query. Give me the answer. Or you can say left outer join. I don't care. You understood my question or question itself is not clear? I'm getting the answer here. So let's see. Select B from book B. Join fetch. Yes, B dot author. So there would be B dot authors, Prashant, because it's a many to many, right? But anyway, you are absolutely right. So when you do this, will Hibernate fire the select query on books table, authors table, both or neither? Answer is both. And how many queries will be invested? One single join query or multiple queries? A single join query. And if you don't specify anything, which is the default join type it will use? Inner join or outer join? Answer is inner join, which you can definitely change it to left outer, right outer, whatever. Okay, so coming back to the point. So coming back to this, that was the solution for any to many lazy policy. Now, what is the solution here? Very, very similar. Here the solution is when you said session.load, no select query is fired. So in the session scope itself, in the persistent context, which is session scope, simply call any non-ID getter. So for example, if I talk in book or author, so authors, suppose author I said, I'll talk an example, session.load. First argument is author.class and some author ID. Okay, but I said load. So what is that load method returning? A proxy. So if I try to access, I'm going to show you all this in a minute. So if I access it directly via do, we'll get a lazy headed exception. So what is this? What is the trick? The trick is simply call A is for author, author proxy, dot get name or get genre or get whatever, get address, some any non-ID getter. The moment you are calling a non-ID getter for accessing other fields, ID don't call ID getter, otherwise it is already there. So what will Hibernate have to do is, it will have to give up the laziness because it doesn't have that title or name or whatever, genre, any such details. So it will have to it will have to fire the select query. But guys, please remember, the load method always returns a proxy. But this time, will it be uninitialized proxy or will it be initialized proxy? Initialized with database data. Uninitialized or initialized proxy. Okay, so wrapper containing the data. And when you access such a initialized proxy in a detached manner outside the session scope, will you expect to see lazy net exception or no exception? Initialized proxy, no exception. Okay, so that is one. And the last difference is, if the ID doesn't exist, it was returning null. But here, if you have already accessed the non-ID getter, so and the ID doesn't exist, here Hibernate throws the new exception, object not found. Okay, so let us try this in exactly 5-10 minutes. 10 minutes, okay, and we'll go to other. I'm telling you, there are other methods which will give you the same thing. So just a second. No, I did not write it here. Wait a second. Maintaining too many copies of sequence. Yeah. So the same example you are going to get, same result you are going to get in JPA, Entity Manager API. When I say JPA, I mean Entity Manager API, find versus this, and Spring Data JPA, equivalent methods. So let us do some hands-on. So you'll feel fresher. So go all the way back to Hibernate, standalone Hibernate. I'll tell you exactly. I'll have to look up myself. So let's say just 2 minutes. I just need something. No, I don't want this. I'll go to day 10. I want to invest less time. So I just wanted some get user details. Yes. So guys, copy. If you can find it, otherwise I'll give you just a second. So what I'll do is I'll copy day 10.1 into today is what, day 21.1. And let me just change this and I'll send you. You can, if you find day 10.1, you don't have to copy, you can continue in that. So here I'm saying simple Hibernate project is get versus here like I said, you continue with that project. It's going to be, you don't have to take all these additional steps. I have to because I'm maintaining day-wise copies. You need this project or are you managing on your own? Anyone? Needed or not needed? You found that day 10.1, open any earlier standalone managing this. Okay, fine. So let's go here. Open that. Please check once. This is all old stuff. Old means native Hibernate stuff. So just confirm once. Whenever you open, you have the proper database name, proper password, and proper username. Otherwise, you'll start getting weird exceptions and you'll waste time. Done? Checked the database settings from Hibernate CFG XML file. Okay. Feels nostalgic, you know, going back all the way. So here, open the tester and there is something called as get user details. So here, Look for the tester, get user details. Here we are entering the user ID. And here, this is that boilerplate code. So you don't have to write this get method so many times. Anyway, so you know, basically, we were getting the session from the session factory, beginning the transaction, managing the transactions, etc. So now, yeah, I think I already know. I've not commented it. So you can comment all these extra lines. So call user.get, I'm sorry, session.get exactly once. You know, all those parts we have already tested earlier. And just run this once. Let me see the table name. We have got users table or something. I forgot. Yeah, users table, not bad. So just run it. Run this tester. Which tester? Oh, it has created the users table. That means I'll have to. So I don't have the user ID. That means we in between we dropped it. So it is returning null. No worries. We will have somewhere register user also. Register new user. Just run the register. I don't know whether your tables are dropped. My table was dropped. So I'm running the register new user. Another tester. User role, or you can simply check this. User role was, I think, I hope this is correct. Admin, amount, the date. Okay, it registered. So I've got one user with ID. This. I don't have the image here. So I can easily use select star from where I've assigned any image to this. You remember blob handling and all. So currently I'm safe. I've not added any image. So this image is all 0x means no bytes there. So one record is there. Now you can run this again, our earlier stuff. Get user details. And I have to recall. I have to make you recall. So as you can see, the moment Hibernate does not find the entity, persistent entity in L1 cache, it gives up, I mean, it is not behaving in a lazy manner at all. It fires the select query and lifts the details. And of course, confirm password is null because it was annotated with transient. Everyone 100% clear? Okay, so now we are going to do just one word change. So what is that change, one word change? Which method will replace by what? Get we will replace by load. Okay, so here I'll just rename it. So instead of get user details, refactor rename it as. So later, anytime you want to test it, you will know. So I'll say load user details. So you'll know exactly. I mean, this is not the change. We will make it change. And here, go to the DAO layer where everything was written explicitly and just change the get to load. Tell me, done the changes? Managing with the changes? Done it? Okay. So now, actually, you know, I forgot. But anyway, now that much you can do. What I was going to do is I was going to show you SOP and all that, but doesn't matter. Now I'll show you. Here, now DAO.get user details. This is fine. So here I'm just making, oh, anyway, let me not make it complex too much. Just run it. Run it with the existing ID. So I hope you have changed the get method to load. And here I'm saying existing ID and tell me, what did you get? The details or the exception? What are you getting? 100% you have to get the exception. Which exception? The good old exception. And why this? It tells you so much. Could not initialize the proxy. So what does a session.load method return by default? Uninitialized proxy. And so you are going to see this. This is what is that proxy. Okay. So Hibernate is creating the proxy anytime you use from anytime you change from get to load. And the moment you are trying to access this uninitialized proxy, where go to this line, is it within the session scope or outside the session scope? Persistence context, the is over or not? Session scope is over or not? Of course, within the persistent context. Come on, this is your session is over. Don't you see this? Didn't you see this? We are either committing the transaction or rolling it back. In either way, the session opened via get current session is auto closed. So within the session scope or outside the session scope, I'm accessing it. Outside the session scope, not this, sorry, load user details. So naturally it is throwing because you are trying to access data which is not yet fetched. Lazy initialization exception. Understood the exception which you will get? Yes or no? Okay, now run the same load user details with some non-existing ID. For example, this one. What do you expect to see? Null or exception? Answer is exception. And which exception? Object not found exception, you are wrong. You are again going to get lazy init exception. Because object not found exception will be handled when there is some data lifted from the database. But here, are we dealing with initialized proxy still or uninitialized proxy? Uninitialized proxy. And anytime you try to access such a uninitialized proxy outside the session scope, lazy init exception is guaranteed. Guys, you did not read this, looks like carefully. If non-ID getter is accessed in a persistent state, which I have not yet shown, and ID doesn't exist, then object not found. But read this twice. When you access uninitialized proxy in a detached state, it throws lazy init exception even despite of the fact ID exists or doesn't exist. So instead of reading long lines, try it out, has been our philosophy. So tell me, if you give non-existing ID and you are using load, what will it return? Uninitialized proxy. And when you try to access this proxy, uninitialized proxy, outside the session scope, what is guaranteed? Lazy init exception is guaranteed. Want to do something more? Do something more. So let me say this. Where am I? Okay. So here, SOP, the class. So how do you get the class name? User.get class. Okay. And run this. I'm just printing the name of the class. First, with the existing ID, tell me, what are we looking at? Are we looking at the user Pojo or is its proxy? Of course, it's proxy. So who has created this proxy and how part you can't understand, but who has created? P for programmer, H for Hibernate. Of course, Hibernate generated proxy. And how it creates, it creates dynamically the subclass of our Pojo class, which is our Pojo class user. And does this dollar symbol, do you remember this dollar symbol? What does it indicate? Inner classes. So it modifies internally the user Pojo class by replaces it by its proxy, which is nothing but that inner class, and that inner class generated is Hibernate proxy. Guys, remember all these statements because the next topic I'm going to take is AOP, aspect oriented programming, and again you will see the words AOP proxies. Only the difference is those proxies will be created by the Spring container. Here the proxies are getting created by Hibernate framework. Okay, now do something more. Give what is it called? Not existing ID. So I don't have this. So tell me, of course, lazy init exception is guaranteed because what does a load method return by default? Answer is by default, I said uninitialized proxy, and such a proxy will always throw you this. Clear about the observations and the statements? Completely? Okay. So is there a solution or this load method is useless? Of course, there is a solution. So what is the solution? Go to the DAO layer and from inside the session scope. So can you tell me the line numbers? I said line numbers where the session is getting over. Probably. Give me the line numbers, please. Everyone knows it. So one is commit or the other one is rollback. So I hope you are saying 94 or 99. So currently I'm going for all, what do you say? This thing, right? You are absolutely right. Positive things. So here. So now what is the way? How to force Hibernate to behave in eager manner so as to return initialized proxy. Proxies you can't change. It is going to return a proxy. That is how the session.load method internally works. It will not show you the user POJO reference, but at least when I say initialize proxy, select query will be fired and I'll get the data. So it is not like an empty wrapper now. It is still a wrapper. It is still a shell, but it is not an empty shell. It has got a data inside loaded. So answer is very easy. Just simply call any non-ID getter. Why I'm saying non-ID? Because if you say ID, you have already supplied user ID. So calling the ID getter may not work. So simply call non-ID getter to force Hibernate to fire the select query. So simply do that. So user dot this thing get something, anything. So you can say user dot get email. Any non-ID getter, simply call. There's nothing special about it. So I'm saying any non-ID getter. So added this. Now save it and run the code. Load user details. Once in this thing existing ID and tell me. Answer the questions. Is your load method still returning Hibernate generated proxy? It's a yes or no questions. Yes. So load method always returns a proxy. But this time, after you see this query, is it an initialized proxy or is it proxy initialized with the data fetched from database? Or is it an uninitialized proxy? Initialized or uninitialized? Initialized. And here, when you access such a initialized proxy in a detached manner means what? Outside the session scope. Are you getting lazy and exception or no exception? 100% no exception because you are accessing the fetch data from database. There's nothing unfetched about it. Got me? So which is this combination? ID existing. You are calling some non-ID getter to force the Hibernate to give up the laziness and then accessing it in a outside the session manner. Okay, the last combination. Run this. Have we called the non-ID getter? Yes. Now give this non-existing ID and then don't press enter. Tell me, what is it you expect? Success or exception? Exception. And now you'll get object not found exception. Okay. So here it is. So see the thing. It is returning a proxy. All the time it returns a proxy. It has tried its level best to hit the select query. But here, which is the exception, and there's a message. It tells you so clear cut. There is no record with the ID 1234, no row with the given ID exists. And in this case, this is again an uninitialized proxy. I mean, I won't say uninitialized proxy, but yes, it is a proxy. And the exception in this case is object not found. Understood load versus get? Okay. And there's a simpler flow chart than this. So that I've called it as get versus load again. And here is the, I've not written for get. Get you know so well. So if you call HS is Hibernate session.load and suppose the ID exists, suppose ID doesn't exist. So if the ID exists, but you have not called the non-ID getter within the session scope, 100% you will get a uninitialized proxy. And after the session is closed, you try to access data. Lazy init exception is guaranteed. We saw all of it. But if the ID exists and you have called a non-ID getter, such as I said, get name, get email, get password, anything, it returns you the initialized proxy as a result of a select query. No exception, you get the details. In the non-existing ID case, if you have not called the non-ID getter, what you are getting is an uninitialized proxy, lazy init exception. But non-ID getter access, this was my book scenario, book.getPrice. So 100% and the ID doesn't exist. The last one, object not found. Getting the complete things, understood it completely? Okay. So now I'll not take that intermediate step of JPA because I'll have to dig up that JPA project. But I can show you this with Spring Data JPA. Okay. So first, open the docs. So Google for this thing, Spring Data JPA API docs. So this is your Spring Data job, docs, and there is a JPA. We have been using the JPA repository, and the method we have been using there is inherited from current repository called as find by ID. So what happens? If you supply the existing ID, it returns you the empty or non-empty optional. In case of existing ID, what does it return? Empty optional or non-empty? Non-empty. And if the ID is not found, doesn't throw any exception, simply returns the empty optional. Clear or not? Find by ID we've been using for last 2-3 days. 100% clear on this? Yes or no, something? Okay, so in this case, when you say find by ID, is it going to fire a select query or not? Just keep answering fast. Does it fire select query or does it not? Shubham is saying not. Quickly answer fast. There's only one answer. At least give me 10 answers, 100 answers. There's no response. Guys, that means your observations are poor, lacking, improvise. 100% it fires the select query. Check it out. If you say find by ID in the same session, within the service select 10 times, only one select query, but 100% it fires the select query. So this is equivalent to get method. Okay. This is 100% equivalent to session.get. Only thing is session.get was returning you a persistent POJO. It returns you an optional. This was a shocker to me when you did not respond. Find by ID fires a select query all the time. Works in an eager manner. That means I'll have to show you this also. But what is equivalent to load in Spring Data JPA? The method name is get by ID. Sorry. The method is get by ID. So here, find by ID, eager or lazy. Find by ID. Looks like you have not worked on it. Or I mean, not worked on it means you just blindly worked on it. I understand it. There has been too many things happening. So focus on important things, guys. And get by ID returns the reference to the entity identifier and we'll play with it and we'll see. Okay. So here, looks like first I'll have to show you with find by ID. So just a second, let's open some existing project. I'll not waste time by copying it or not. Or should I? I'm just thinking. Anyway, so let's just give me a second here. D20 employee backend. Let me check. I want to pick up something very simple. And I have got a com app controller, employee controller. And I've got a Get all employee details. I want looking for get employee details. Great. Okay. So here open day 20 employee backend. Any simple employee CRUD backend I want. You can go for day 19 also if you want. I don't know. Anyway, day 20 I found. Can you find it? I'll just refactor it to instead of copying, I'm just being lazy. Refactor it to day 21, right? Yeah. It is day 21. So I just refactor it. Day 21 employee backend. I'm just confirming this. So it doesn't change everywhere, looks like. It becomes easier for me, as always, to share stuff with you. Otherwise, I might forget. 2 minutes. Okay, so focus. So say Control Shift W, close everything. Open my controller, com app controller, employee controller. This we had tested with the front end. I mean your React front end. And can you see a method here? Get employee details. I'll keep answering fast. Found the method? Okay. So the method name is get employee details. I'm not going to launch the React front end. I'm just going to test it with Postman. Easy. Okay. So now go to the controller is calling the service layer method. So go to employee service. It's all the same concept, but you have to know in order to answer questions. And which is the method we are calling is fetch employee detail. So which is the method currently we are using? Find by ID or get by ID? You check it from your code and answer. Find by ID. Okay. So don't answer anything. Just, just observe. Observe means you yourself observe. So let me say this. Let's run this project. Right click, run as Spring Boot app. And I need to see the name of, I keep forgetting, the name of the table I was looking for. So I can select star employees, easy one. You also check all this, select star employees. Okay, so I've got employee ID 2. Launch your Postman and check the endpoint. Endpoint. Slash API slash employees and path variable, I guess. Yeah. Slash API slash employees. Here. See which port I'm using. You also check it out. Now you know all this lot. Last so many days I've given you Spring Boot practice. So I'm using 88. You check all your port numbers and all. So, oh sorry, 88 is fine. Slash API slash employees and some existing ID. Let's say 2. And tell me whether you got a employee details. You can connect your React frontend also, but easier, testing with Postman. But that's not the point. The point is select query fired or not fired? And people were not sure, which was a shocker to me, actually, to be very honest. Of course. So what will you say? Find by ID, lazy or eager? I mean, the moment you say find by ID and the data is not there in L1 cache, it is firing it. Okay. So now, just since we anyway spending time, might as well do it fully. Might as well do it fully. So here, do this couple of times. Okay. Do it couple of times, please. Save. It will automatically reload. We have added the Spring Dev Tools dependency, which is a live reload. Okay. And here, clear the console, fire the query again. You can do it with some other ID if you want to choose. Existing ID still. So I've got 3. Okay. So I got the details. That is anyway a known fact. How many times select query was fired, even when I called find by ID a couple of times? So can everyone agree with the fact that find by ID is nothing but equivalent to session.get? And which was a disappointment for me when you said you are not even sure whether how select query gets fired or not. Are we all 100% clear? So what is the statement? When you say find by ID, first your JPA provider, which is currently Hibernate, checks in L1 cache. So for the first time you said, for the first time when you called it, of course, there was nothing. The L1 cache was empty. See this. Yesterday, I showed you the whole transactional internals. So only open the session and get current session opens a brand new session. And what is it? L1 cache is empty. So here the first select query, I mean, not first, only select query was fired. But next time onwards, it found that the persistent entity is already there in the L1 cache. So query fired only once. 100 or 200% clear. Since we have spent so much time, I have a right to say this. Yes or no? You be like you can say still not clear and I'll take it gracefully. I hope you are clear. So now this part is done. Now, what is it we are going to replace it by? Everyone knows. So remove all those multiple occurrences. Find by ID will be replaced by what? Get by ID. Done this, save it. It will automatically reload, clear the console, run it from Postman, and tell me what did you get. Oh, I got an unresolved compilation error. Sorry, I jumped. So there's a small change. I am totally this thing. So guys, just take a cursor here. I'll show you from this. It doesn't return you optional. That's the problem. So get by ID returns you directly T. So you'll have to do a little bit of changing here. My bad. So you simply say comment all this. Nothing much. The find by ID returns you optional empty or non-empty. So we had to say or else throw. So we had to replace that or else throw. I mean comment it. Finally, you are going to use find by ID, which is okay. So it will reload. We should not get any compilation errors naturally. And please try this out and tell me, what are you getting? So it gets a full HTML form, HTML output. So instead of, understanding all of this, try this here. There was no global exception handler in that. So take up this line, it get employee details 3, pick up this line. It's too long horizontally. I hate to do horizontal scrolling. I mean, it becomes too much. So instead, pick this up and read it. You read it and tell me. What is it? Guys, such kind of errors, be prepared in your projects. So if you just don't panic and read the error message, 99% you understand it and you can resolve it. So is it handled by our, what is it called? Programmer supplied exception handler or Spring supplied? In this project, have we added any global exception handler? No. So it is handled by Spring. Okay, so this is an older one. And read the superficial thing. It says OS, a Spring exception, HTTP message not writable. It is telling you could not write JSON because it could not initialize the proxy. Are we back to proxy? Okay, keep reading. So it says employee number 3, no session. That is, you are trying to access it outside the session scope. You are sending it. And here it is giving you the internal nested exception, JSON mapping exception, could not initialize proxy. And here it is telling you what you are getting is, you tell me now. I hope you are relating it to what I said earlier. So let me start the whole story for you, restart the story for you. If you use get by ID, is your Hibernate as a JPA provider, is it working in a lazy manner or eager manner? Keep answering fast. I don't want to overspend. I have already overspent time. Lazy means what will get by ID method return? Uninitialized proxy or actual, what do you say, actual data, actual POJO, uninitialized proxy. And this uninitialized proxy, you have sent it for marshalling. You remember serialization to what? To Jackson. That is to the Jackson mapper. And can it convert uninitialized data to JSON? Of course not. So you got a JSON mapping exception, and the whole reason is the Hibernate is behaving in a what? Lazy manner. Are you understanding it totally? So that load method is equivalent to what? Find by ID or get by ID? Answer is get by ID. You got it? So this is the difference I wanted to point out, because sometimes what happens, you are in a solid hurried phase or whatever phase in your project, you want to complete it and you use auto completion, and by mistake, instead of find by ID, if you use get by ID, you will get it. So be aware. When you say proxy, you have to connect the link that somewhere we are doing lazy initialization or lazy fetching, and be prepared to have this. So wait a second. So in this case, I've not really tried, so it will be interesting thing for me. Generally, I have proper use cases for this. So here, let's try this out with you guys. So here, assign it to the right hand side, employee, and here we'll return it. So I'm just trying to get the this thing, non-ID getter, anything, get ID, oh, non-ID, I said, get last name, and then returning it to the caller. Let's see whether the same solution as your Hibernate's load works here. So here it will get reloaded. You are trying to access, you are forcing Hibernate to behave in an eager manner. Let's see whether this hack, not hack actually, this trick works at all. Yeah, so things are consistent. Like I said, I've not tried this because I know when to use get by ID. We know when to use find by ID. So guys, oh yeah, see this. Still, look at this, guys. I was just jumping to this. It's a very interesting conversation, and you'll definitely recall it in the project phase, if not now. See this. All the statements which we make, it becomes so easy to confirm. So did you get this data in the front end? Yes. But here, you remember, I have added, looks like, okay, this is not my message. This just coincided with my message. Something went wrong. Spring message, and read this nested exception and all. I'll take you to the correct one. And here, read this and tell me, when you use get by ID and you are calling a non-ID getter within the session scope when the session is not over, what is it still it is returning? Your choices are actual employee POJO, uninitialized proxy, or initialized proxy this time. Initialized proxy. But your Jackson has a problem. So Jackson still cannot what? Cannot send, cannot convert, cannot serialize. See, it has given a serialization exception. So it cannot serialize whether it is uninitialized or initialized. It still has an error. So the situation here is, because of Hibernate's lazy initializer, it still cannot. It got an additional error message. So what is the solution? Should you use which method? Which method should be used? Get by ID or find by ID in such case? To avoid all these exceptions, eager one, find by ID. Understood the statement? All things, all observations I've shown you. So this was your load versus get, equivalent to JP as entity manager, find versus get reference, and latest one, find by ID versus get by ID. So between find by ID and get by ID, which works in a lazy manner? Get. get by ID, and which works in a eager manner, find by ID. Okay. So at this point, I generally get a question from the beginners, freshers, laterals, whatever. Anyone wants to ask me a question at this point? Otherwise, I'll ask you. No question, you are satisfied looking at the things? Okay, I'll ask you the question. People ask me that then if you know that, okay, like load is so bad or your get by ID is so bad, is there any use case or is it just given redundantly? 100% there's a use case. So what is the use case of lazy loading or lazy fetching? Answer is, okay, let me say this. You understood the question what I asked you? People ask you all these things. So you have to think ahead of time and keep yourself prepared. What is the use case of this lazy loading policy? So let me ask you, which one will be performant, higher performant, loading the data from the database or not loading the data from the database? Which one will be faster? Obvious question, guys. Respond fast. Not loading the data. Okay. So anytime, I'm going to show you the use case in a minute. I'm just preparing you for that. So anytime you don't want the actual data to be, actual data fetched from the database. You just want a reference. You just want a proxy. That is the best use case for your what? Lazy loading, as in load or your get by ID. So first, let us make this correction and I'll show you that other one and we'll move on to the next one. So you can go to your employee service implementation. I'm keeping it all here. So anytime you feel like, revising it or, playing with the code in the lab session, be my guest. I mean, do that. So here I'll just comment this and we are using like earlier. This one. Okay. And returning it to the caller. We are gone back to, have I correctly done it? Find by ID or else throw, etc. Yes. So I'm just confirming that whenever I'm giving you the code, there are no errors here. So scroll all the way. There's no exception at all. So find by ID. Is it returning you initialized proxy, uninitialized proxy, or the actual POJO reference, or other persistent POJO reference to be better? Uninitialized proxy, initialized proxy, or persistent POJO reference? Answer is persistent POJO reference, actual data. Okay, that. So now open something. I hope I have a use case. You can stop this project. Just give me a minute. I'll search for the use case. It's assigning minute 1. 2 seconds. So here we had done it in the REST server yesterday. In the bank controller, we had written create bank account. So let me check this. 2 minutes. I'm confirming before I make the statements with you. So customer, yeah, this is the use case. So guys, I'll tell you, I'll open net banking REST server. That is your net banking backend provider, API provider. Open bank controller. In bank controller, we had added a new endpoint so that a user can create a user means existing customer in the bank wants to open a new account, which is possible. One customer can open multiple accounts. So here the front end was giving us create account request, control click on it. And what are the details? We had to know this account belongs to which customer. So customer, I can say customer name, title, whatever, not title, whatever you need. So we just chose customer ID. It was a supplied customer ID. And then we added the account information. Understanding me so far? We wrote it together yesterday, that endpoint in the lab, I guess. Okay, so and then, so this is your, this is what your DTO, request data, payload. And once you go to the service, open that service layer, net banking service implementation. So what is it we do? We did. We had to get the customer details by its ID. So this is what we check. So here we use the find by ID. Okay. So here, and once I say this, and of course I could use this one, what is it? Or else throw and all. So the control comes here if the customer ID is found. And then I created the transient bank account. And this is where we establish the link from bank account to the customer unidirectional. And then finally we got this save method. So tell me frankly, this code is completely clear to all of you, not just 10 of you who keep responding. Other 210 do not respond. So I hope it is clear to them as well. Anyway, so this is it. So this was perfectly working. So why don't you try this out? Because I want to make, okay, I'll tell you what my point is. You must have guessed it already. The moment I say find by ID, when this code is executed, will your Hibernate, which is JPA provider, will it fire the select query or will it not? It will, of course, fire. Now you have seen it, so everyone is confident. Of course, it will fire the select query and select followed by what it will call when the at the dirty checking and the committing of the transaction. Which query will be fired? Of course, insert query. So select followed by insert. Confirm in a minute. So launch this. Run as Spring Boot app. And then, of course, I'm going to replace it by what? This thing, get by ID. So, and we'll observe and conclude. So this is it. I'll have to check the endpoint. So /bank/account. I should have saved it in the collection, you know. I haven't. No, it is a sign in. Anyway, so this is running on 7070, I guess. /bank. You check that bank account. Body here. Oh, this was a sign-in thing. No, this I don't know. Now, please, I should have saved it in the Postman collection, which I did not. So I'm paying for it. So what I have to set is customer ID and type and the balance. Anyway, so here is your customer ID. This is my other this thing. So use that 23. This was a backend database, if you remember. Select star from customers, right? And then I'm saying from bank accounts. Okay. So I've got so many created. So let's say with the one first. Okay. And then we are saying the other one, type or cut type, I forgot. It's type, yeah. I can say, let's see what other types we have. So I will have a new entry. I've got loan. So I can use loan. Please give the uppercase. You know, it is a enum. And let's say balance is not really, but anyway, whatever. So I can say balance a loan amount or something.
मैम HDFC 101 की जगह टाइप आएगा.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Something else got, listed. Type. Am I correct now? So this is your creating. This is still we are working with find by ID. So see status created. You can check all here. ID 10, that account ID, this, and it is, I'm not using that join JSON ignore. So it is showing me all this. So you check it here. Yeah, it has created the new record. But the real question was here, is it firing one single insert query or select followed by insert? That's a key question. Select insert or only insert. Okay, select insert. Now open that net banking service implementation. Comment this. And here, which method you are going to replace by which one? Lazy, I'm sorry, eager by lazy, find by ID by get by ID. So this returns you a customer itself. Customer, let's say customer, what is the variable name? Customer. And here I'll say cust repo dot get by ID. And here it is a request dot get customer ID. Okay. And here, just take the cursor here and it says, so returns a reference to the entity with the given identifier. So all this is fine. And suppose imagine that we are giving the correct customer ID. We are going to run the same thing with a new account details. And then I'm giving it as a link and all that. Okay. You can check for null or not null, of course. We'll do that. Just run this, clear the console, and let's create a new account for the maybe the same user. Here. So customer ID I'm giving the same. So some other account maybe. My financial state is better, so I can create a FD now. Some value. So say send. So first check. Oh, okay. So you see, you get to see so many things. You tell me what happened. There are, once you open the discussion, you can see that. So did you get, which is the error message you got? Internal server error, 500. Okay. Okay, keep observing. Open the this console, server console. Which queries were fired? Select, insert, both or neither. Are you? I know from my side. I'm just asking you to match yours. Open the database and check whether the result got, the record got inserted or not. Check the database. It has got inserted. So, as far as server side is concerned, is your get by ID working in a lazy mode or eager mode? Quick question, quick answer. I don't want to waste time already. We overspent time on this. It is working in lazy mode and it is perfectly fine. Why? Okay, that small problem will resolve. Don't worry about that. So the point I'm trying to make is when you don't want the actual data lifted from the database, replace find by ID to get by ID. But now tell me, I explained this so I can always ask you. Why, while marshalling the data, why it failed? Because your JSON mapper, that is your object mapper Jackson, can it really marshal? Can it serialize the proxy or can it not? It cannot serialize the proxy. This is a initialized proxy or uninitialized proxy. This is uninitialized proxy. Come on, guys. Oh yeah, sorry. You are right. I'm so sorry. It is an uninitialized proxy. My mistake, because select query is not fired. And the whatever proxy, whether it is initialized proxy or uninitialized, it still cannot access it. So is there any way to tell JSON mapper Jackson that don't send this and let it work in a nice, lazy, but a fast manner? Lazy is always fast. Lesser the queries hit to the database, better the performance. Is there any way where I can tell the serializer, that is your Jackson is working as a Java to JSON and JSON to Java mapper, that don't send this? You have seen it yesterday. I'm not asking anything which is unknown. Is there annotation? Of course, you are right, Rishikesh. JSON ignore. See, everything should make sense together. It is not just one topic. They are all linked topics. So let's not waste time. So where was it? Wait a second. So just open bank controller. What is it I'm sending? Wait a second. That is why, guys, I can say I can spend hour on this, but which we don't have. So tell me, what is it we are returning in the service layer as a response, bank account. That is why there is I told you, I think Bildung, one of the author which I follow, and there's another one, Corbin Jansen or Hansen, I don't know how they pronounce it. I think with H there. I mean, the spelling is Jan, but whatever. Anyway, so I'll give you those links also. So here, that is why both these authors suggest strongly, don't directly return the entities, don't expose the entities, instead create a DTO. But that will eat up a lot of time. So is there any way where I can go in the bank account class, open that, and tell Hibernate to not to send this particular data or customer details to the front end? Answer is yes. So this is what I had taken yesterday. So please uncomment this line. I don't know whether it is commented or uncommented. It will get reloaded automatically. I'm just using the JSON ignore. And here, you've got too many accounts now. Doesn't matter. You can get rid of it. So another FP maybe. And say this. So it is saying 201 created. Go to the end of it and tell me, have you achieved best of both worlds? As in better performance and no exception and the record inserted. Okay, best of three things I'll say. Tell me, is it working or not working? Working fine. So did you understand the use case of load, which is lazy fetching, or get reference in Entity Manager API, or in Spring Data JPA, get by ID? So where you can use it? You can definitely use it in many-to-one relationship. Any-to-one actually, it is one-to-one as well as many-to-one. And where you don't require the data to be loaded from the database, you can simply work with the proxy. That is the use case of lazy fetching. Understood 5-10% at least? After seeing the observation, I should ask you better. Understood to 25% at least? 1/4. Honest answer is expected. I'll feel bad if it is lesser, but still I'll know the answer. Okay, so definitely you have a lot of things to play with in the lab session. Try this out. So that was all about the next one. What is it? Here. Find by ID versus get by ID. I was not planning, to be very honest, I was not planning to spend so much time. I was just going to tell you verbally, but then I thought might as well show you. So I'll just pick up the ready, I'll share. In your projects, this is a project tip, this is not a exam tip or anything. So if you require in your project, if you come across a composite primary key, if you realize I have not shown you a single demo of composite primary key, so let me send you this code. We'll finish it in next 10 minutes looking at it, and then we'll take a break. So wait a second here. Actually, you'll require Spring Boot AOP also. Anyway, I'll give you both. Add to. I'm sending you two projects. A zip consists of that. Right now, we are not starting with AOP. AOP is a bigger topic, so we'll do it after the break. So just download it, extract, ignore Spring Boot AOP, import Spring Boot demo in your workspace. I'll wait. You tell me whenever you are done. I'm waiting for your answer like. Yeah. Have you done this? Are you still doing it? I've given you a zip file, extracted it. You will get two projects. One is Spring Boot AOP. Ignore that currently. Other one is Spring Boot demo. So I hope you did this. So here, sorry, what is wrong? Okay, so when you open that Spring Boot demo, please change, wait a second. First edit the application resources, application property file. I mean, change it as per your, your whatever username and password. Here I have given one more request parameter, create database if not exists. We don't require it. Our DAC22 database exists. You tell me, edited root, username and password, because it's a composite primary key demo. And just check one more thing. Otherwise your existing tables, I don't want to touch. So if you open src main Java, Ojo, yeah, I don't think you have a table by the name, but still check. Just check. I had tested it yesterday, so I will have simply say show tables, use DAC22, and if you say show tables, I can drop this table and start it from scratch with you. You don't have new accounts table. Do you have or you don't? You should not be having, I mean, it's a weird name. There should not be any new accounts table quickly. Okay, now focus on important stuff. So what is it I'm showing you? It is nothing but a demo of composite primary key for your projects. So I'll explain it in a bottoms up manner. Open account.java. Account is the Pojo. I'm not saying here extends from this, what is it called? Base entity. It's a simpler one. You'll know why in a minute. So here, this is, okay, by the way, for those whose Lombok is not working, please replace noargs constructor by the default constructor and add data by all getters and setters and toString. No need to generate hash code and equals. Okay. So this overloaded constructor I have already written. Now can you check which are the two mandatory annotations to make it as a proper JPA entity or Hibernate based entity? Which are the mandatory annotations? First day of Hibernate, we said all this. At entity and at ID. So at entity, you can see at the class level. And which is the other annotation you are looking at? At ID or at embedded ID? Answer is at the rate embedded ID. Okay. So let me do it properly. By the way, both the annotations works. I mean, both means don't add both, but even if you remove this at ID and comment this, 100% it works. You can check it later. Okay. Will work in the same manner for you to test later. So let me explain. I'm saying my accounts, two accounts are same if and only if not only account ID is the same. I've taken something like branch code or something. So account ID and branch ID is the same. So the moment I have, go back to our core Java equals method. So here, when you see this, what is it? This is nothing but equals having multiple criterias. So is the ID field, is it a simple primary key or is it an example of a composite primary key? You know the answer. It is nothing but your composite primary key. So how do you add this composite primary key in JPA world? Answer is same, good old same answer, using embeddables. So let me ask you, that composite primary key, will it have a standalone existence or is it going to be embedded? Is it a composition or is it an aggregation between account and its primary key? It's a composition. How can you think about an account primary key without a corresponding account? So you have two types in Hibernate, two types of Pojos, entities and embeddables. So if the account primary key cannot exist without the account, and you don't want those corresponding columns. You want those corresponding columns in the owning table, owning entity table, which is the annotation we use for all this at the rate. I mean, will it be a value type or will it be a entity type, your primary key? Will it be an entity type or value type? Of course, a value type. So guys, I hope you are understanding. Till now, it was a single field. So we were calling it as private integer or long or string or whatever. But now, the moment you have a composite primary key, you have to create it as a separate class. There are certain rules. Okay. So first rule is how to tell Hibernate whatever follows is a value type and whose contents have to be embedded in the owning entity table. The compulsory annotation is @embeddable. Remembering this annotation, mandatory annotation, embeddable. Now other rules. I hope you remember long back I had said, long back means on the first day of Hibernate. Let me ask you, which of the following is mandatory for Hibernate managed persistence? Option 1, Pojo class has to implement serializable interface. Option 1. Option 2, the ID property must be serializable. Option 3, both of above. Option 4, none of above. Option 2. You remember? Pojo classes where we have created. See this, we have written by now tons of Pojos in last 20, 21 days. Okay. So, but okay, not 21. First week wasn't Hibernate, but whatever, 14 days. So coming back to the point, Pojo class need not be serializable. You can make it serializable, but what has to be serializable? The primary, the key, the ID field. So here it is what? Composite primary key or simple primary key? Composite primary key represented by the class. So the second rule is the composite primary key class must implement serializability. Understood that? First rule, compulsory embeddable. Second rule, must implement serializability. And you know, the moment you add it, either you say add suppress warnings or I've just generated the default serial version UID 1. Doesn't matter even if you comment it. All you will have is a warning. Now what else? So these are your composite primary key members. Simple question, simple answer. When you run this, a table will be created. What will be the name of the table? New accounts or something, right? So the table will have a name, new accounts. Can you tell me what will be the columns of that table? Anyone wants to tell me what will be the columns? Okay, guys, name type balance, of course, I'm not interested in that. I'm just interested in this. Will these appear as the columns or not? 100% yes. Are you understanding? So with Spring Data JPA, we are trying everything with Spring Data JPA. So what will be the column name? Account underscore ID automatically and branch underscore ID. So that is your composition. The value type details added as the owning entity table columns. So of course, the restriction here is you can't have it automatically generated because this has to be user supplied. The moment you use a composite primary key, you can't use @generated value annotation there. So here, I don't think I've written it as a, okay, I've not used a Lombok annotation. So all setters and getters. And now the last rule. In order to tell the Hibernate or the JP implementer, this is that unique combination. Which unique combination? Account ID and a branch ID. The composite primary key class must override or must obey the contract. Which contract are we talking about? The contract between overriding of equals and hash code. Which is the branch which has to be followed? The mandatory branch. Which is what? Equal objects must produce, you tell me, same hash code or different hash codes? Different hash code. Hello. Equal objects must produce the same hash code. And the optional, okay, that brings you the hashing algorithm working fine. It uses internally the hashing algorithm. But what is the optional branch? The different objects should produce different hash code for the better efficiency. O1 factor, constant time performance. So this time I've not taken the efforts. I just generated it. If you use the Lombok annotation, when you add data annotation, Lombok, it generates all of it. Okay. So the point was not Lombok this time. Point was composite primary key. So do a quick recap. How do you create a composite primary key class? Composite primary key. You have to create a separate class. Okay, separate or inner, different, but I would suggest separate. Annotate it with value type annotation, embeddable. Make the class serializable because this is your ID field, primary key, composite primary key. Whatever fields. So right now it is two fields, account ID and a branch code, branch ID. Give this default constructor parameterized, which is the annotation you cannot add here is @ generated value. The moment you choose a composite primary key, you have to fill up. It has to be user assigned, supplied. Okay. Next one. And the other compulsory rule is you must follow the contract between overriding of hash code and equals. Okay. So once you have done all of this, what is the relationship between account and its primary key? Has a relationship. And of course, it is a composition tight coupling. And either you use @embedded ID just to signify, take a cursor here, applies and all that. So indicates it is a embeddable. But if you comment this and you uncomment @ID, 100% works in the same manner. Okay. So I have written the test cases for you already so that we can avoid. I mean, you don't have to write this. Can you check here, guys? I have not written the controller. If you want additional practice, you can write a controller. But I have given you the test cases. So you can see this is all repository. Okay, I'll not confuse you. Get rid of this implementation. I'm using Spring Data JPA. Earlier, I had written it differently. So account repository, if you want, I just, refactored it recently. So extending from JPA repository, everything in Spring Data JPA, not different. And you have a service layer, which has the account service implementation, which creates an account, which gets the account, and which is also updating the account. So I think I've written the test cases for these two. So I hope you understand. If you want to get the account, in goes the ID, out comes the details. So here I have to supply from user, from your Postman client or whatever you write, account ID and the branch code. So just take a look. I've not written the controller for this. You can take it, but I've written the test cases. So open com.app.service. I'm just explaining it. You will run it in your break time. If you cannot manage, we'll do it together. So this is your service layer test. The moment you have the major master annotation Spring Boot test, it is going to launch the entire application context, entire Spring container, but in a debug mode. In short, I can access any beans, controller, DAO, as well as service bean. So which is the bean I'm injecting here? Service layer bean. And here, look at my simple test case. So start reading. So here, what is it I'm doing here? Creating the account instance with account holder name, account type, this is not enum, and the account balance. Now, what is the next line? This is the new thing for us. What is the next line? What is it I'm doing in line number 21? It's a simple question. Yes, we are creating the account primary key by taking the account ID and the branch code from user. User means here there is no user. You convert it into controller and test it with Postman. And naturally, you are setting this account with a primary key. By the way, you can also do this. You can add an overloaded constructor which takes account primary key and finish these two lines in one statement, whatever suits you. And then I'm just calling the service layer create account method. So if you go, the control will go to this. And in create account, there's nothing fancy. All I'm calling is our good old save method. Is the test case clear? The first one. And then I'm just checking. What is it I'm checking? This is not assert equals. So when I say account2.getID, see what it returns is the persistent POJO reference. So should that account ID, which is account primary key, should it be null or not null? So I'm asserting, I'm confirming whether that persistent POJO reference account primary key is not null. 100% it has to be not null if all goes well. Understood the first test case? Tell me. You're going to run it on your own. Okay, next one. Now it is a getter. You can write one more for update, or I would say if you want more practice of controllers and all, write a controller, a two-liner controller, a bank account controller and test it. So here, when you use this service layer get account method, what is it you'll have to supply? Account ID, branch ID, both or neither? Of course, both, because how can you otherwise uniquely define our primary key? And if you see our control, I mean this, nothing great. So here again, I'm using find by ID because I don't want a proxy. I want actual data. You remember find by ID versus get by ID. So use it smartly. And I'm telling you a thumb rule, programmer's tip. If you are in the middle of project, you are panicked already about something, things are not working. So don't go by performance in the first phase. Use find by ID. 100% it will never throw you lazy at exception. And then in the last few days, when you start performance tuning your project, making things better, then you can find such things and replace it by your get by ID. Was my tip. Anyway, so coming back to the point, here I'm creating a primary key instance, account primary key class, using the eagerly firing method, and in short, fire select query will be fired and getting this. So definitely run this. And here I'm giving these values. So naturally account.get balance, I'm giving 10,000. So it has to match with that. Understood both the test cases? So which one you will run first? Naturally in the break, not now. Let's not waste time. Already I've stretched your break. So first run this test case, see whether the table, account primary key, everything is working properly, and run this also. Can everyone manage it comfortably? Running the test cases and checking it out? Everyone feels confident about that. Okay, so try it out. Otherwise, we are resuming in an hour. We'll test it together. That will be all. See you at 11:20.